Someone put a question to me on how do we liberate, and that got me thinking, what are the ingredients for a person who can liberate? Of course, this is very broad spectrum because we can ask, okay, what is liberation? Let's look at it as a notional subject. Self-liberation. Liberation can only be from self, and that self includes everything which interacts with this notional self. To make it a kind of selfhood which is unliberated, which means it is our reception of the nature of experience. Why? Because the nature of experience and the way we experience experience is something which translates back to this self which has been created over a lifetime. We don't know how to extract ourselves from this notional self of name and identity and personality, and we receive experience in a very conditioned way. So, to liberate, first of all, the first and primary quality is to be free. Free of experiencing experience in a way that translates back to the construction of the notional self. Descendance and transcendence are both within us and both within our reception and perception of experience. Now there is perception, and there is also perspective. There is perception and there is perspective. There is descendance and there is transcendence. It's all within us. Perception is very subjective. It is how we are experiencing experience in order to keep embellishing the notional self. And perspective is how experience actually is. This is something I recently heard in some podcast over the YouTube, and it made complete sense. To have perspective over perception, to see the big picture. and not translate it back to the notional self. Can we do that? If we can do that, then we are consciously choosing transcendence over descendance. We are consciously choosing freedom from self, thus liberation, which is its ally, or are we choosing perception, descendance, non freedom of self, remaining in the same ecosystem of the mind, or the other? It is a conscious route that we are establishing to be free, to be liberated. If we are capable of seeing things in this way, then I could say that we are on the path. We may be at the threshold, or we may have crossed the threshold and entered already the portal to self liberation, or liberation from self, which then gives rise to self realization. Once we are free from self, it is then that we realize our true nature, our true spirit. Because now that space which has been vacated, that whole cacophony of self has now been silenced. And in that vacant space, in that shunyata, there is something profound which becomes the new mind, which becomes the new reality, which becomes the new perceiver of experience. So until we enter this space of singularity, of intention, of perception, of perspective, of transcendence, of selfhood, which is not torn between matter and spirit, we are not candidates for self realization, self liberation. We are only candidates for liberation if we have found this freedom and it is applicable to how we experience experience.